So hi, Allison. Welcome to Raising Inner Warriors.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yes, and I know this is going to be a really interesting conversation as a mom. However, we're talking, and you mentioned that you're also a co-host to a podcast called, is it called The Unstressed Mom or just Unstressed Mom?
The Unstressed Mama.
Oh, The Unstressed Mama, right.
Yes.
So we'll talk a little bit about that at the end, but maybe let's just talk about you as a mom.
Okay.
And your son. And
okay.
Yeah. What kind of challenges he had, and a little bit of like the challenges and then the wins.
Okay. Well, I have a 9-year-old son. And he, right from the beginning almost, has always been just an anxious kid. And I didn't always know the best way to deal with that. I've been through, he did a little bit of counseling, and I was always reading books with him and trying to do things like that, and really felt like nothing that I was doing was helping, but I kept trying to do it anyway, because I felt like that was better than doing nothing. So one of the biggest things was, once I moved him out of the crib, he had been just an excellent sleeper. The kind where when people were at my house, when I put him to bed, they were just amazed, because I did my routine. I would take him around to have him tell everybody good night. And I would go in his room with him and read him a story and then put him in bed. And that was that. And unless he was sick in the night or something, I didn't see him again for 12 hours. He was out, and that was that. And once I got a toddler bed, all of that changed. He started waking in the night. He was scared. He was having nightmares, and he was sleeping in our bed because he was terrified. And I was too tired to get up and go into his room and help him fall back to sleep 6 or 7 times a night. So, like many, many other parents that I've heard of, I just gave in, and he started sleeping with us, which was not ideal. For anybody who's slept with a toddler or a small child can tell you that even in a king size bed, they take the whole bed, and they might be getting a good night's sleep, but nobody else is.
Yeah. Kicking.
Yeah.
Taking around. Yeah.
And he didn't want the blankets on, and he'd be pushing him down, and then it was always me that he pushed to the side, and I'm sleeping in a king size bed, clinging to the edge of it, trying not to fall out. And so it just was not ideal.
No.
And it also, a lot of people are very, very judgy about that too. And it wasn't something that I really wanted to talk about a lot, because the comments you get from that are just, they're not the best, and you're already tired and you're already worried about it. And having people judge you for that just isn't helpful.
Yeah, especially because a lot of the time it would be things like, if I were you, I would be doing this and I would be doing that kind of thing. Right?
Yes, or I would never have that. I just wouldn't
accept that or tolerate that, or
yeah. So I knew that part of this was building self-esteem that would help him. At the time, we lived in a really small house, so his bedroom was right next to ours, and we had both of our bedroom doors open. Our beds were literally, probably 5 feet apart from ours to his. So it shouldn't have been scary for him, but it was. So, now that we have this situation going on now, last year we moved into a new house where his bedroom was then completely down the hall from us and much further away. And he chose that bedroom because it was connected to a bathroom, which surprised me, and said that he was going to start sleeping in there, and he never did. A couple of times he asked if I would have a sleepover in there with him, and I did, thinking that maybe he could ease into getting used to the bedroom. And even with me sleeping in there with him, he didn't get used to it, and he thought that room was creepy. So back in our, in our bedroom, he remained. I shouldn't say back in our bedroom. He remained in our bedroom. But at this point, he was getting older and bigger, and he actually didn't want to be in our bed at all. And he had asked me if we could move his bed into the bedroom. And I said, well, no, I didn't want to put a permanent bed in there. So all of this time, we had also been involved in Cub Scouts. And Cub Scouts was an activity that I had him join when he was in kindergarten, because I had heard that it was very good at helping build self-esteem, the program itself, and, dealing with or having exposure to the den leaders. So I did that, and it was fun. But again, when you're doing something like helping your child build self-esteem or get over anxiety, there's no like, oh, yesterday he couldn't answer this math question and today he can and he understands it. There's nothing like that concrete that you can put your finger on and say, oh, this is getting better. So I didn't know if any of it was helping, but again, kept going. And so we had been on some campouts with the Cub Scouts, and I bought these camping cots. And after one of our camping trips, he said, can I have the camping cot up in the bedroom and sleep on that? And I said, oh, yeah, I don't see why not. So that was he moved out of our bed then, but still in the bedroom. And we went through a couple of other iterations of different type of beds. He like had a beanbag chair for a while, and a futon type of thing. And then he finally asked me, can I move my bedroom into the room right next to yours? And I thought about it. Oh man, that's a lot of work. And his bedroom set wouldn't really fit in there. And I said, finally, you can, but let's do a trial run first. I don't want to move all your furniture in there. Let's try some other things. And lo and behold, this very first night he tried to sleep in that bedroom, he slept in there, and that's been it. He has that bedroom, and he feels safe finally to stay in there in his own room right next to ours, and he's completely out. So I feel like we finally have big success there, and that alone, having him in his own room, has given him such a boost of self-confidence, because when his friends are over, or if he wants to have someone spend the night, he doesn't have to pretend like he doesn't sleep in our bedroom at night.
Of course.
Mhm.
So what do you think could have been because you mentioned the Scouts. So what do you think was the tipping point? Because at one point he decided, he asked, he was ready, right? He was really ready. And so it was like he kind of even actually said, this is what I'm ready to do, right? Like you didn't have to present it, it came from him, which is even better, right? Obviously for the motivation, right? Like he's presenting the idea that I don't want to be in the bed, but I'm going to be on the cot.
Yeah.
And so did he learn that? Because from what I understand, so then when you went on those camping trips, it was with the Cub Scouts, but the family went. So he wasn't doing an overnight camp. You were there with the Cub Scouts, and then it was like a day camp in the day. Like, is that what happened?
No, they were overnight camps, but I was with, when they're Cub Scouts, they don't go alone. The parents have to come with on the campouts. Okay.
Oh.
So I was with him on all of the campouts, and sometimes his dad would come too. But we had went to summer camp last year, about an hour away, and it was just him and I. And we had the first night was well, it was hotter than Hades, but other than that, it was great. You know,
Typical.
yeah,
Yeah.
typical summer camp, and you're in a tent with no way to cool down. And the second night, there was a storm forecasted, a thunderstorm. And everybody was kind of deciding, were they going to stay? Were they going to pack their stuff up? What were we going to do? And the next day there were still some activities. He really wanted to do the rock climbing. They have a rock climbing wall there. And he did not want to leave because there was no close hotel. We couldn't just go stay somewhere and come back in the morning. We either had to stay or go. So I talked to him about it. It's going to be thundering. It's going to rain. Everybody was looking at the radar and there was no question it was going to be a big storm. And he said, no, I really want to stay. I think it'll be fine. We have a new tent. It won't leak. And I'm like, not a very experienced. Well, he's been camping just as many times as I have. So I learned how to pitch a tent and all of that stuff just as he's been going through scouts. And so we stayed, and at about 2:00 in the morning, the storm hit and it was a doozy. High winds, it was like we were in a rave. One flash of lightning after another. Is super bright, pouring down rain. And I woke up and thought, oh my gosh, I don't like this one bit. And then he woke up and said, Mom, this is really scary. And I didn't know how to answer him at first. I thought about it for a minute, and our cots were right next to each other. So I reached over and I was holding his hand, and I thought, some of the stuff he's scared of, there's no basis for it. And I try to logic him out of that, but this is actually really scary. And I don't feel like I should lie to him and say that it isn't. So I didn't. And I said, I know it, buddy. It is really scary. And he had brought his Biscuit, the stuffed sloth. And I reached over and found Biscuit. And I said, here, let's hang on to Biscuit and try to go back to sleep. And he did. Within like about 2 minutes, he was sleeping. I can't say the same for me. And, now that's like an adventurous, fun story that we tell. Although for me, it was absolutely terrifying. But
were there other people also in the same situation as you? Like there were also, yeah. So that he could tell the tale that he became strong, though. He became strong enough to cope, I guess. Interesting for me to hear the story, because a lot of the time that's how it's kind of like building a bridge, right? Like he had something to look forward to. Right. He didn't want to miss the rock climbing. So he making a choice in his mind, I want to stay for the rock climbing. And yeah, you wonder if the influence of the others saying, well, we're all going to be at the, we're not going there, right? So then I have to stand up, right? And
yeah. I mean, some of them left, about half left and half stayed.
Oh, okay.
So we had other people with us there, but they weren't in our tent. They were in tents next to us.
Oh, okay. So they weren't up in the night like you two?
They probably were, but you didn't go outside because it was pouring.
No, but I was thinking maybe if they had mentioned it the next day or something.
Oh yeah, we were all talking about it in the morning for sure.
Okay. So it's interesting you said sometimes you try to use logic.
Uh-huh. Yeah, so scared of the dark type of thing. Say, well, what do you think might happen in the dark? Is it just because you can't see what's coming? Do you think that there are different creatures in what exactly is it? So something like that. I try to use logic. And I can't say that it actually helps.
Yeah, and there was another story you also had of you told me once about, I think when he was much younger, about the T-Rex or something.
Yeah, he kept telling me that there was a T-Rex looking in the window of his room. And there was no talking him out of that. That's when he first started coming in our room.
Oh,
that nobody else could see it, just him. And he kept waking up and it was looking in his window.
okay. But the thing is that now as we speak, are there any situations that come up for him where he doesn't feel strong enough to cope?
Not that I can think of right offhand. I
Okay.
don't have, he doesn't usually want to go to school, but
Okay.
that's, I don't think anxiety driven, because once he gets there, he's fine. I think that's more of a, I just want to gripe all over your morning situation. Because he does good in school and he has friends, and as soon as he gets out of the car, he's off running, smiling.
Okay. So there's also maybe these are like milestones, right? And so the Cub Scouts, if you had to, say it, just to kind of conclude on that, what do you think was the tipping point or the thing that changed everything? Was it because there was a certain amount of, I want to be part of this, community, or I want to be part of a group, or
And the program itself forces them to be independent in a lot of ways. And for instance, this year, he's a bear, and they get a whittling chip, so they learn how to use a knife.
Okay.
And it's a real knife. I mean, he whittled wood with it, and he has a pocket knife now. And I can't, sometimes as parents, and especially I think people with only one child like me, you tend to helicopter whether you mean to or not.
Okay.
And they end up not being as independent as they could, which saps their self-confidence. And a program like Scouts, I can't whittle his things for him. I can't do it for him. He has to do it himself.
That's
And
very
I really
empowering.
think, mm-hmm,
Very empowering for him and for you.
yeah, yep. Yeah, because it makes my life a lot easier when the more things that he can do on his own, and that I don't have to try to figure out a strategy to help him through it, the easier it is for everybody, and everybody's happier.
Yeah. Kind of like the idea that, each flower blossoms or at its own rhythm, right? And yeah, it just seems like, because it seems like everything kind of in the end evolved more where you didn't have to force him to go somewhere else. He in the end became stronger, or he made a choice. He like, I'm ready kind of, which is really encouraging.
Mm-hmm.
So you're not kind of like thinking that someone is like, it's got a label and they're stuck there.
Yeah.
But once they're there, that's it. When actually he's moving along a path, and eventually he's going to become strong enough to cope on his own. Like in this situation, some I believe, right, because you're mentioning earlier about the counseling and the shame, right, of having to share that. And then there's other situations where the child actually, like in your story, where he was ready, like in the end, it was like the space was there, you were holding the space, as they say.
Yeah.
And then it happened. Whereas others, there's much more of an accompaniment, right? Like micro steps, like you'd see in therapy. Right? Which could have worked too, but I think in this situation, in the end, I think it seems like the Cub Scouts became like the launching pad in a way, right? Like I want to be able to rock climb. I want to be able to show that I too I'm going to be okay in this tent. Right? Yeah, interesting. So if you had to kind of say any kind of encouragement, let's say for a parent of a boy or a girl that's I don't know, like 6 or 7 years old, wasn't that long ago, for you, what would you suggest? Like, what would you, if you had to just give encouragement to someone?
To not give up, because a lot of times through the years, I thought, what I'm doing must not be working because I'm not seeing any improvement. And you might not see improvement until it all happens at once, like it did for me. This was years of effort. I mean, probably 6 years of effort that I put in before I got the result that he needed to have and I wanted to have. And not to be afraid to look outside of yourself, because you don't know everything. You'll never know everything. And having outside influences, like for us, the Cub Scouts and, the counselor for a little bit, and swimming lessons too. I didn't mention that. Those kind of things were the things that helped build his self-confidence in a way that I could not do myself.
Oh, is there something you wanted to share about that? A little bit more about the swimming? Was it because at one point, what was it like?
Well, that was another, along with not sleeping in his own room, I had him in swimming lessons and it was a nightmare. He didn't want to put his face in the water. And every time we went, he would scream. He was the kid that was screaming and hysterical in the pool, and he wouldn't even stay in there. He, like some kids, think that the door in between their parents and the pool is some impenetrable fortress, and he was under no such illusions. He would just leave and run to me and say, I hate this place, I want to leave. So I took him out of swimming lessons because it was just so stressful. And I said, when you are ready, tell me and we'll come back, because you do have to learn how to swim. And until you do, you have to wear a life jacket every time we go swimming.
Okay.
So he would many times want his life jacket off, because it, as you know, at first it was no big deal because he was 4 and most little kids are wearing something. And even 5, 6 started to be a little embarrassing. 7 definitely was, he did not want to have a life jacket on. Come on, mom, we're in shallow water, I'm taking this off. And I said, no, you have to learn how to swim.
Okay.
Otherwise it's not safe. So finally we were at a hotel out of town one weekend and he started putting his face in the water on his own.
Mhm.
After all those years of, I mean, it was even hard to wash his hair, because if the water got on his face, he was melting down, and all of this just drama.
Yeah.
And just boom, just like that. It was just like the sleeping in his own room thing, where I worked on it. We went swimming all the time, inside, outside, because he loved to swim. And I thought, well, the more I expose him to this,
Mhm.
maybe eventually he'll just do this. And then he did. And I got him in swimming lessons right away as soon as he did that. And now he is an excellent swimmer. He's a better swimmer than I've ever been. He's got good form, and all of that helped with his self-confidence. It was just a big snowball of seemingly small things that I did that all built together to have a really big effect on him.
Mm. So it's a great victory. So is he the kind of boy that also has anything like test taking anxiety or jitters, upcoming events, dentist?
No, man. He used to have dental anxiety. He now has an expander, which has not been the most fun thing, but he has taken that in stride.
Okay.
So
He's coming along pretty well.
he is.
Okay.
Yeah. And he, his life has not been without challenges. He may have, the opportunity to choose between 2 bedrooms, where a lot of kids don't have that, and other advantages, but he's had some issues with his teeth that have been very painful for him. And, he's got these fears to deal with. And for any kid, that's a lot.
It is. And yet, you held the fort. And is there anything else you want to add about that?
No, I just, I think don't force them. Just if there's something like swimming or sleeping in their own bedroom or whatever other issue, if there's something you want them to do, for me, what worked was continual exposure of, well, let's try it this way. Do you want to have a friend spend the night? Then if they sleep in your room with you, is that okay? And, just trying a lot of different things until you find something that works.
Yeah, exactly. All right. So it's actually, yeah, it's continuing to be like the problem solving, like in problem solving mode. How can I get my kid to, go over the
Yeah.
gorge on the tightrope, right?
Right.
Yeah, or whatever the image we want to have, or the bridge, or just be on the bridge with him as he's crossing. Great. These are great victories. So maybe you
Yeah.
can share before we close up about the Unstressed Mama podcast that you co-host.
Sure. So I co-host it with two other colleagues. One is a physical therapist, one is a fitness coach, and I am a copywriter. Is my full-time gig. So we talk about all things stress that cause stress to moms. So right now we're in the middle of doing a nutrition series, and we talk ourselves because we have quite a bit of expertise just among us, but we also bring guest experts quite often. We've got one coming up on fitness. In the past, we've done them on parenting, chakras, which was interesting, but not as woo-woo as one would think. Just all kinds of money, any subject that you can think of that would cause you stress as a mom, we cover it and we talk about it. And we offer solutions on how you can reduce your stress related to those topics.
Great.
So it's fun.
Okay, well, I'll put that in the show notes.
Yeah.
So once again, thanks very much. And, keep going on your journey as a mom, right? You haven't reached it.
Yeah.
The queen, I guess, is coming up, and then adolescence. But I think even just having those victories are significant, like milestones on that path, right? So it's great.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, so we'll sign off and talk again, maybe on something else.
Okay. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, you're welcome. Bye for now.
Bye.